What is up, everybody? Is your boy the Hunter Fisher. Welcome back to the KastKing channel, and today, guys and girls, I'm going to show you how to set up your BFS bait finesse system bait caster perfectly for the first time. This is honestly my opinion. I've had numerous BFS reels now. I'm a huge BFS enthusiast. If you don't know who I am already, go check out my YouTube channel. I have tons of BFS related content. I have tons of just great BFS tips and tricks to help you have more fun with BFS on the water. But today, guys and girls, we'll be using the KastKing Kestrel Elite BFS reel. I got it right here on one of my rods for BFS, and we're going to see what kind of fishing we can do today, but I'm also going to show you how to dial in the reel. A lot of people have a tough time learning how to fish specifically with BFS reels when they first start out. The reason why is because you're using a bait caster with light line, light lures, everything's light. So everyone has a tough time figuring that out, because when BFS with normal bait casters, you can sling it. You can really not have to worry about backlashing if you kind of dial in your reels. But this is where I'm going to tell you that's wrong. You don't have to sling every single freaking lure you have. But today, the reason why these reels are called BFS bait finesse is because you have to finesse the cast. And I'm going to tell you more about that on the GoPro. I'm going to put that on the chesty. We're going to catch some fish and see what we can get into. I'll see you guys there. All right, y'all. We are out on the water. I've got a little 1/8 ounce Duo-Realis Reiku spinner. Where we've got the KastKing Kestrel Elite here. I've actually got the 8-pound hammer braid on here right now, and I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks on how to dial in your BFS reel for the very first time. But I'll actually show you guys the reason why I use braid. Just one quick thing I feel like that's really important, especially with BFS reels, is the type of line you use. You can use 4-pound, 6-pound, 8-pound line if you want to, but personally I am a big fan of using braid because obviously, if you can't tell, I live in Florida. There's tons of grass all the time, everywhere. It's kind of annoying. So braid is just kind of my go-to. But the thing is with braid is you do have a smaller diameter line. So smaller diameter line, but a higher tensile strength. So you can still manage to, you know, fish lighter line, or technically higher, like a less thick line, and still have decent strength with 8-pound braid, because I'm using the KastKing hammer braid at 8-pound right now with a little bit of a leader. Oh, I just got chased. With this line, I'm actually able to get really far casts if I really wanted to. I've been kind of spot casting here and there right now. If I wanted to, I could launch a couple of lures if I wanted to. But as you guys can tell, I'm actually using a shorter rod today to actually get a little bit better spot casting. Another very important aspect of how you can perfect your BFS reel, how to very finely tune it, is how you set up the settings on this reel. So with this reel, what I do is I take the spool. If you can tell, I'm trying to wobble it side to side inside of the reel. Try to get it to where there's no side to side play, or if any, there's like pretty much next to none at all. So I use this little spool tension knob. There we go. I've got it to where it's tight, but we're actually gonna loosen it up a little bit because I like it just slightly looser than most. So there we go. I've got it like just this bare minimum of side to side wobble. And what I do is I usually start with my brakes at like halfway on all my BFS reels, and then I try to launch it. And usually I either backlash or I don't, but typically that's how I start out. Is I usually launch at the very first couple of casts, or just very much take my time with those casts, because typically when you're using lures like this with a spinner, you can kind of tangle up your hooks with your line. So we're going to take down that weight a little bit, and we're going to keep progressively moving down that brake setting to try and get better distances. So that's how you kind of set up a bait caster with especially BFS, but you have to take your time. If you don't take your time, you're going to mess it up a lot. So highly suggest taking your time casting this around. I mean, just do a couple of lob casts instead of, you know, complete, you know, sidearm blast it to the moon type of cast. Oh, there we go. Oh, I had a fish. Oh, I still have a fish. Sweet. There we go, guys. Just fish number one, I guess. Guys, this is probably the smallest fish I've caught in quite some time. Let's get him back. There we go. He's back. All right, y'all saw that first fish. I was being quiet because there's just so happened to be like 80 million people walking all around me when I got that fish. But literally what I was doing is just casting over some brush area, trying to get over the grass and stuff, trying to catch fish. But I'm trying to fish a little bit more areas I usually don't fish. But the thing is with BFS is you can kind of get lures in places you used to not be able to a lot of time with spinning. Like my ultralight spinning gear, it's a hard time casting in this little area. You guys notice I'm actually using a left-handed orientation of this reel. I typically am a right-handed bait caster fisherman, but for a particular reason, I started fishing with BFS reels in my left hand. The reason why is because it allows me to set the hook a little more softly. I know that makes like no sense. You want to set the hook hard. Most bass fishermen think that. That is not the case with BFS, because you want to set it soft, especially if you're going to catch fish like I just did. The reason why is because if you do, you're going to rip their face off or literally just lose them in the hook set, and you don't want to do that. But yeah, I fish with left-handed also because it allows me to more efficiently fish an area, because I cast my right arm and then fish with my while holding it in my right hand, because if you switch, you're losing a lot of area that you're fishing. You're also slowing down, and the whole point of BFS is to be more efficient. So that's another tip. I don't take it how you will, it's up to you. Another quick tip I can give you with fishing with BFS gear is you want to cast with a sidearm cast 99% of the time, in my opinion. The reason why is because, one, a lot of the areas that you fish, you don't have overhead room, and you want to fish with where you can cast the most efficiently and most correctly. But if you overhead cast, you're more likely to lose control of an overhead cast rather than a sidearm cast. Like with a sidearm cast, you can control. Oop, I just got hit hard. But with a sidearm cast, you can control how your arm and power goes throughout the cast a lot more efficiently than with an over the top. It's going to produce less backlash, and if you can take your time with the sidearm cast, you can really get to see the most distance comparatively to an overhead cast. Another quick tip with BFS gear and setting up, ideally to experience the best BFS experience, I guess, on the water, is to mainly set your drag the same way you would set spinning drag. You want to be able to let that fish pull your line. You're fishing with light line, even if it is on a bait caster. You do not want to crank your drag down. I just got a fish, but like how he's pulling away, you want that drag to be able to pull. Oh, little bass. Oh, he's got in that grass. Yeah, there you go. Proves my point exactly. As I was telling you guys to set your drag appropriately, I caught a fish to prove that point. Here we go, guys. First bass of the day, back in the water. All right, guys, that was fish number 2 of the day for me. But yeah, as I was explaining to you about setting up that drag appropriately, that is a very big deal, because if you don't, you could lose a fish like I just did. I managed to get him out of the grass even with a light drag, just because mainly I knew how to play him out of that grass. So definitely recommend learning how to set up your drag to where it's light enough to let them pull, because typically 9 times out of 10 they want to get off the hook just as much as you do. All right, guys, just to show you how I launch whenever I want to absolutely get my baits furthest out possible, I set my brakes a little bit lower. I give them a little more room. I let out a little bit more line than usual, and then I do a sidearm cast, because a sidearm cast will give you a lot more freaking control over that cast. So I highly recommend. Oh my lord, fish are jumping over there. Makes me want to fish with flies. But yeah, if you want to get the most distance, sidearm cast for days. You kind of want to aim at like a 45 too. 45 is a little bit high, more like a 35 angle. Oh, there's a fish. It's another one. Another tiny old bluegill. Guys, we have been duking it out for a while now, about an hour. We've been chilling. I've been trying some float and fly, some new techniques I've never really tried before. I'm taking your tungsten head fly jigs and I'm fishing it underneath a float called the rattle and pair. And I'm trying to see if I can finesse a couple of these summer fish into biting. I've had a couple of interested looks from it looks like bluegill, a couple of bass, but mainly bluegill. I've been trying to thump the float actually. essentially what I'm doing is I'm just casting it out and jigging it back, and what I'm doing is I'm using this right here. This is called the Rattle and Pair from Mr. Crappy. I'm using a tungsten stonefly. So maybe I'll get bit eventually. We'll keep trying to find it out. It's typically a winter technique, but I heard you can use it in the summer in Florida. So we're trying it and see what happens. I love catching more grass than bass. Said no one ever. There's so much grass in here, guys. It's hard to fish a jig like this. We're gonna keep practicing. There we go. We've got great distance, and I barely even had to try for that cast too, which is the nice part. So just gonna slow roll it back in like I've been doing. Oh, it's a bass. I'm getting thumped on this chatterbait, guys. It's a little micro chatterbait right here. It's getting thumped. Put on my own little plastic. It's getting destroyed. There we go. There he goes. There's a fish, guys. The micro chatterbait. Heck yeah. Little micro chatter. All right, guys. Well, there's a fish on the micro chatterbait that I just said I was kept getting bites on. That was a good hook set too. Jeez. Guys, that is a little micro chatterbait. Throw him further out because there's a bunch of fish right in front of me. But hey, I'm not mad. I've caught a decent amount of fish today. Not a bad thing. That is never a bad thing. So we're gonna keep fishing on the way back, and then I'm gonna give you guys just a summary of the tips that I gave to you guys on the way back and see what you guys think. If you guys have any questions about anything, as always, just leave it down in the comments below. I can see about answering them. All right, folks, we're gonna take a couple more casts, work our way back, but it's getting to that point to where I'm getting ready to call it a wrap. Hope there's no snakes chilling around here. First step, use braid. Braid helps a lot for me. Braid's been really my go-to line choice in pretty much every type of fishing. It's hard not to use braid. It's just more line, thinner line, and it gets better casting distance. So yeah, there's that. But another thing is remember to get better casting distance, try to cast like it's finesse as well. Because what I mean by that is casting sidearm helps you kind of have a more controlled cast so that you can focus on thumbing the spool as you cast the reel. So it gives you a little bit more control over the cast and your reel as well, so that you don't have to worry about, you know, backlashing every freaking cast. Just like that. Super easy, makes it super simple. But also remember that you don't need to cast as hard as you possibly can every single cast. And if you do, work yourself up to it rather than immediately work yourself down, because you're just going to ruin your time on the water and reduce the time in your water because you're spending time taking backlashes out. So I always recommend taking your time, casting with a sidearm, and progressively getting further and further as you learn the area. Because I mean, at the end of the day, there's probably fish right in front of you. Either you've sat there because you know the fish are right in front of you, or you don't know. So in 9 times out of 10, there's fish right in front of you. So I always recommend fish short, then work your way out, just like I've been doing. That's mainly the main tips that I can give you with the KastKing Kestrel today, and otherwise tuning the bait caster, which I showed y'all earlier. Definitely make sure your bait casters are properly tuned, otherwise you're going to be backlashing for days as well. Thank you guys again for watching the KastKing channel. I am the Hunter Fisher. See you next time.